Hey everyone, it's Emily. I used to think that blood was thicker than water, that family always had your back. But life, well, it threw me a curveball that showed me just how wrong I could be. What happened next wasn't just a fight for my life, it was a fight for my soul. And honestly, it changed everything. The hum of the high-end projector was usually a comforting sound, the backdrop to my success. But that afternoon, in that sleek downtown boardroom, the fluorescent lights above me seemed to pulse, and my vision started to get fuzzy. I gripped the edge of the polished mahogany table, trying to steady myself. 40 pairs of eyes, the entire executive team and potential investors, were locked on me. Something was wrong, horribly wrong. And as you can see from these third-quarter projections, my voice, usually so confident, wavered. The PowerPoint slides on the massive screen began to swim, the sharp graphs and bold numbers blurring into a meaningless swirl of color. My heart wasn't just racing, it felt like it was trying to hammer its way out of my ribs. I'm Emily Harris, and I was, quite literally, dying in the middle of the most important presentation of my career. Miss Harris, are you okay? A concerned voice asked from somewhere in the blur of faces. I opened my mouth to say, I'm fine, but no sound came out. The whole room tilted, like a ship capsizing, and then suddenly, I was staring up at the acoustic ceiling tiles, watching them spin lazily as my body just crumpled. A wave of voices crashed over me. Call 911. Is she breathing? Someone get some water. Clear the room. My assistant, Chloe, her usually perfect makeup already smudged with tears, her face a mask of panic, appeared above me. Emily, stay with us. The ambulance is on its way. I tried to lift my hand, to reach for my phone in my jacket pocket, but my arms felt like they were filled with wet sand. Call my parents, I managed to whisper, the words scraping my throat before everything just faded to black. The next thing I remember was the cold. An invasive, bone-deep cold. And voices, urgent, professional, speaking a language I barely understood. Words like cardiac arrhythmia and immediate surgery floated through the fog in my brain. Please, I begged the nurse who was prepping my arm for an IV, her touch surprisingly gentle. My phone, I need to call my family. She hesitated for a moment, her eyes full of a pity I didn't want, then handed me my iPhone. My fingers were trembling so badly I could barely unlock it. Straight to voicemail for Mom. I tried Dad. Same thing. My texts grew more frantic with each passing second. Mom, I'm in the hospital. City General. Dad, please answer. They're taking me to surgery. I'm scared. The nurse gave me a sad, sympathetic look as she gently took the phone from my shaking hand. We need to go now, honey, she said softly. I'm sure they'll be here when you wake up. They weren't. I came to hours later, adrift in the sterile, beeping landscape of the ICU, groggy, disoriented, and utterly alone. The steady, rhythmic beep of the monitors was the only soundtrack to my isolation. Chloe had left a note, a sweet, worried scrawl saying she'd be back first thing in the morning, but hospital policy only allowed immediate family after hours. Immediate family. Yeah, what a joke that was turning out to be. Around 3 a.m., a night nurse, a kind woman with warm eyes and a gentle touch, came in to check my vitals. She adjusted my IV, her movements efficient and comforting. Your mother left a voicemail a little while ago, she said, reaching for my phone on the bedside table. Would you like me to play it for you? I nodded, a tiny, foolish flicker of hope igniting in my chest. Maybe they'd been on their way. Maybe they'd gotten stuck in traffic. The nurse pressed play. Brenda's voice, my mother's voice, filled the quiet room, bright and breezy. Hi, sweetie. We got your messages, but oh my goodness, we just can't get away right now. Tiffany is having an absolute meltdown over the color they painted her new condo. She's just inconsolable. You know how she gets. It's this sage green, and she wanted more of a seafoam? Anyway, total crisis. We'll try to pop by tomorrow if she's feeling a bit better. Love you. The nurse's face when I dared to look at her was a study in carefully controlled outrage. I just turned my head away, hot, bitter tears sliding down my temples and into my hair. Would you like me to call someone else for you? She asked, her voice soft with an empathy I hadn't earned from her. A memory, sharp and painful, flashed through my mind. Last Christmas, I'd just written a check for $50,000 to cover Tiffany's latest mountain of credit card debt. Brenda had barely glanced up from helping Tiffany arrange her new collection of designer handbags. Thanks, Em. You're such a good sister. Good sister. Good daughter. Good for nothing, apparently, but footing the bills. I wiped my eyes, a sudden cold clarity washing over me. Actually, yes, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Could you hand me my phone? I need to call my lawyer. She passed it to me, a flicker of concern in her kind eyes. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I scrolled through my contacts and pressed the call button for Marcus. Marcus, it's Emily, I said when he answered, his voice thick with sleep. I know it's the middle of the night, but I need you. Bring the papers. All of them. I paused, listening to his startled questions. Yes, I'm sure. I'm in the ICU at City General. Another pause. No, my family isn't here. And that, Marcus, is precisely why I'm calling. After I hung up, I just stared at the acoustic tiles of the ceiling, the heart monitor beeping out a steady rhythm that now seemed to match the new hard resolve forming in my chest. I had almost died today, and my sister's paint color crisis, paint color, had taken precedence. 20 years of similar moments, a relentless tidal wave of disregard, crashed over me. Tiffany's staged tantrums at my college graduation because the attention wasn't on her. My parents missing my company's official launch party. A huge milestone for me, because Tiffany had a bad date and needed coddling. The countless, endless times I'd cleaned up her financial messes, her emotional messes, her life messes, while my own achievements, my own needs, were left to gather dust. My phone buzzed on the tray table, a notification from Instagram. Tiffany, she just posted a selfie, beaming, with Brenda and Richard huddled around a fan of paint swatches, looking serious and concerned. The caption read, "Worst day ever. But thank God for family support when you're in a real crisis. Blessed family first, paint problems, crisis management." I clicked off my phone and closed my eyes, feeling something hard and cold crystallize deep inside me. It wasn't my heart this time. That poor thing was still too battered. No, this was determination. Pure, unadulterated, steel-edged determination. Tomorrow, Marcus would be here, and he would help me start dismantling every single thing I had ever built for them. And for the very first time in my life, I wouldn't feel a single shred of guilt about it. Marcus arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, his tailored suit immaculate, his leather briefcase practically bulging with documents. He took one look at me, pale and washed out against the stark white hospital sheets, still tethered to a web of monitors, and his usual unflappable professional demeanor cracked just a little. "Jesus, Emily," he said, his voice low, "you look like hell. You look like hell. Always knew I could count on you for the unvarnished truth." I managed a weak smile. "Did you bring everything?" He pulled up the uncomfortable visitor's chair and began laying out stacks of papers on my rolling bedside table. "Everything you asked for, and then some. But Em, are you absolutely sure about this? This is aggressive." "Aggressive?" I echoed, my voice flat. "My heart literally stopped beating yesterday, Marcus." And my family, my devoted family, was too busy debating the finer points of sage versus seafoam to even bother showing up. I'd say aggressive is exactly what this situation calls for. Marcus nodded, his jaw tight with a grim understanding. We'd been friends since law school and had been a reluctant ringside observer to my family's particular brand of dysfunction for years. "All right then," he said, his voice all business now. "Let's start with the will. Changes to beneficiaries." For the next hour, we meticulously worked our way through the mountain of documents. My signature, shaky at first, grew steadier with each page I signed, as if my hand, my very being, knew this was right, even if my heart still ached with a lifetime of conditioned loyalty. "Okay, so that's your parents officially removed as beneficiaries," Marcus said, shuffling a thick sheaf of papers. "Next up is revoking their power of attorney and all access to your financial accounts, specifically the ones you've been generously, and I mean very generously, using to bankroll Tiffany's rather extravagant lifestyle." A memory surfaced, unbidden and sharp. Last summer, standing in my parents' opulent kitchen, holding Tiffany's latest platinum card statement, it was astronomical. "It's only $70,000 this time, sweetie," Brenda had said, her voice casual, not even bothering to look up from the latest issue of some glossy lifestyle magazine. You know how terribly hard things have been for her since that awful breakup with, what was his name again? "Do it," I told Marcus, my voice firm, cutting through the memory. "Revoke it all. Every last cent." He pulled out another stack of papers, these ones with property deeds, and the lake house in the Poconos, he said, his gaze steady on mine. You want to list it? Today, if possible. Your parents spend every summer there, Emily. It's their sanctuary. Not anymore, I said, the words tasting like a strange kind of freedom. My phone buzzed again. A text from Brenda. Tiffany picked the most perfect shade of sage. Such a relief. Crisis averted. How are you feeling, sweetie? Hope you're resting. I held the phone out for Marcus to see. He let out a low whistle. That's something else, Em. Watch this, I said, a grim sort of satisfaction curling within me as I opened the family group chat. My fingers, surprisingly nimble, flew across the keyboard. Still in ICU after emergency open heart surgery, Mom. Thanks so much for asking. But hey, super glad Tiffany's walls are going to be the perfect shade of sage instead of that dreadful seafoam. Definitely worth missing your daughter's near-death experience for. Marcus raised an eyebrow, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. Poking the bear, are we? More like finally waking it up, I retorted. They've been hibernating in their little bubble of blissful denial for far too long. My phone immediately erupted with a flurry of notifications, like an angry beehive. Emily, don't be so dramatic. The doctor said you're stable now. Well, visit soon, princess. Just a lot going on here. OMG, Emily, why are you always trying to make my apartment crisis about you? So selfish. I turned my phone face down on the tray with a decisive click. Keep going with the papers, Marcus. We're not done yet. By noon, we had drafted, signed, and notarized everything needed to legally and financially sever my life from my family's parasitic attachment. It was like excising a tumor, painful but necessary for survival. Marcus was just packing up his briefcase when my best friend, Maya, burst into the room like a whirlwind, carrying a large cup of real coffee. Not that hospital swill, and looking absolutely murderous. I just saw Tiffany's latest Instagram story, she announced, her voice tight with fury as she handed me the blessed coffee. She's doing a full home renovation reveal video, tagged Keller Blessed Chick Reno New Beginnings Family Support. Not a single solitary mention that her sister, you know, the one who pays for everything, almost freaking died yesterday. Of course not, I said, taking a long, grateful sip of the strong, hot coffee. That would require acknowledging the existence of someone other than herself. I've got all the papers ready to file, Marcus said, standing up and straightening his tie. But standard procedure, I'll hold them until tomorrow morning. Give you one last night to think it all through. Make sure this is what you really want. I shook my head, a small, decisive movement. File them now, Marcus. Please. I've had 38 years to think it through. Today was just the final confirmation. After Marcus and Maya left, promising to return later, I scrolled through my phone, a morbid curiosity pulling me in. Tiffany had posted again, a boomerang video of her twirling, ecstatic in her newly painted, perfectly sage-green living room. Brenda and Richard were in the background, Ma clapping and beaming with pride. The caption was a masterpiece of self-absorption. Sometimes it takes a village. So incredibly grateful for parents who drop everything to help out in a real crisis. Feeling so blessed, Paint Party family, first true support. My fingers hovered over the comment button, itching to type something scathing. Instead, I closed Instagram, took a deep breath, and opened my email. I composed a message, carefully worded, to my entire contact list: friends, colleagues, business associates. Dear friends and colleagues, I am currently recovering in the ICU at City General Hospital following emergency heart surgery. While I am stable now, it was, to put it mildly, a very close call. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but for transparency, as it will explain why I'll be out of office and largely unreachable for a while. I'm also sharing this because yesterday I learned something incredibly valuable about family. Sometimes the people who you believe should be there for you simply aren't. And sometimes that profound disappointment is the exact wake-up call you desperately need to see things as they truly are. Best, Emily Harris. I hit send, a strange sense of calm settling over me. Then I turned off my phone. Let them deal with the fallout of their own choices being made public for a change. I was done, absolutely, unequivocally done covering for them. A little later, a nurse came in to check my vitals. She glanced at the pile of neatly stacked legal documents Marcus had left on my bedside table. Making some big decisions today? She asked, her voice gentle. Life-changing ones, I replied, meeting her gaze. Well, your heart rate's much stronger now, she noted, smiling as she checked the monitor. much more regular. I looked out the window at the sprawling Chicago skyline, feeling a lightness I hadn't experienced in years, maybe ever. "Yeah," I said, a small smile playing on my lips. I think it finally remembered how to beat just for itself instead of for everyone else. She patted my hand kindly and then slipped out of the room. In the sudden, profound quiet of my hospital room, I could have sworn I heard the distant, crackling sound of bridges burning. And you know what? It sounded an awful lot like freedom. 3 long days after my surgery, my parents finally graced me with their presence. Brenda swept into my private room, a cloud of expensive perfume and feigned concern, wearing her signature oversized designer sunglasses indoors and carrying a ridiculously extravagant bouquet of lilies that probably cost more than my first car. Richard trailed behind her, looking deeply uncomfortable and out of place in the sterile hospital environment, his hands shoved awkwardly into his pockets. "Oh, darling," Brenda exclaimed, air-kissing the space somewhere near my cheek, as if we were meeting for a casual brunch at the club, rather than her visiting her daughter post-cardiac event. "These dreadful fluorescent lights are absolutely brutal on your complexion. You look positively washed out." "Nearly dying tends to do that to a person, Mom," I replied, my voice flat, devoid of any warmth. Richard cleared his throat, a nervous, rumbling sound. "Now, Princess, there's no need for that tone. We're here now, aren't we? 3 days later," I thought, but didn't say. Brenda began fussing with the flowers, arranging them in the cheap plastic vase the hospital provided, filling the silence with mindless chatter. "Tiffany so wanted to come, poor dear, but she's still dealing with that dreadful contractor. It's been such a nightmare for her. You know, they completely botched the crown molding in the guest room. She's been in tears all morning, absolutely beside herself." I slowly reached for the morphine button on my IV drip and pressed it. Not for physical pain this time, but for the Herculean patience I knew I was going to need to endure this visit. "Where is Tiffany, anyway?" Richard asked, looking around the room as if he expected her to materialize from behind the privacy curtain, perhaps with a paint swatch in hand. "Probably live streaming her crown molding crisis on Instagram," I said, my voice laced with a sarcasm I didn't bother to hide. "Did you know her dramatic story about paint swatches got significantly more views and engagement than my emergency surgery announcement?" "Fascinating, isn't it?" Brenda's hand stilled on the flowers, her smile faltering for a split second. "Emily, please. You know how sensitive she is. She's been absolutely beside herself with worry about your situation." "My situation?" I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. "You mean the situation where my heart stopped beating and I almost died?" A sharp knock on the door saved them from having to cobble together a response. Marcus entered, looking crisp and impeccable in his dark suit, carrying a slim leather portfolio. At my mother's face instantly lit up. She had always harbored a not-so-secret hope that Marcus and I would eventually get together. "Marcus, how lovely to see you. Are you here to check on our girl?" she cooed, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Actually, Brenda," Marcus said, his tone polite but firm as he walked directly to my bedside, "I'm here in my professional capacity." He handed me a folder. I took it, opening it slowly, savoring the almost imperceptible shift in the room's atmosphere. "Mom, Dad," I began, my voice calm and steady. "You remember Marcus is my lawyer, right?" The carefully applied color drained from Brenda's face. Richard's forced affable smile flickered and died. "These," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "are copies of some documents I had Marcus file yesterday. I've officially removed you both from my will. I've also revoked all your access to any and all of my financial accounts. And, oh yes, the lake house in the Poconos. It's been listed for sale. The house?" Richard stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief. But where will we go in the summer? We always go to the lake. Not my concern anymore, Dad," I said simply. Brenda's perfectly manicured hand flew to her throat, a gesture of pure melodrama. "Emily, you can't be serious. We're your family." "Family?" I let out a short, sharp laugh, and the heart monitor beside me betrayed my spike of anger with a series of rapid beeps. "Let me tell you a little something about family, Mom. Last month I paid off Tiffany's $70,000 credit card debt. The month before that, I covered her rent when she forgot to pay it for 3 consecutive months. Last year, I single-handedly funded her spectacularly failed online jewelry boutique. And do you want to know what I got in return for all of that? When my heart literally stopped when I was lying in an ER fighting for my life when I needed you, my family, the most? You chose paint swatches. You chose a temper tantrum about crown molding over your dying daughter. That's not fair, Emily, Richard protested weakly, his voice barely a whisper. No, Dad, what's not fair is that I have spent my entire adult life being your perpetual backup plan, your financial safety net, your human ATM. Well, guess what? I looked from his stunned face to Brenda's crumbling composure. The Bank of Emily is officially, permanently closed for business. Marcus, ever the professional, stepped forward and handed them each a thick stack of papers. These documents detail all the changes Emily has authorized. I'd suggest you read them very carefully. Brenda's hands were visibly shaking as she fumbled through the pages. This is ridiculous. You won't go through with this. Family sticks together, Emily. You know that. We taught you that. I looked her directly in the eyes, my gaze unwavering. If that's true, Mom, then how come I almost died completely alone in a hospital bed while you were comforting Tiffany? The silence that followed was heavy, deafening, broken only by the steady beeping of my heart monitor. The house is already listed, by the way, Marcus added quietly into the suffocating silence. We've already had several inquiries. We expect it to sell very quickly in this market. Richard sank heavily into the visitor's chair, the papers crumpling in his clenched fist. Princess, please, he pleaded, his voice hoarse. Let's talk about this rationally. Oh, I had plenty of time to think rationally while I was lying here alone for 3 days, Dad, I said, my voice cold. Did you know the nurses here, total strangers, took turns sitting with me after my surgery because they felt so bad that I had no family here? Strangers showed me more compassion and concern than my own parents. Brenda's mascara was definitely starting to run now, black streaks appearing beneath her eyes. You're just being dramatic, Emily. We came as soon as we possibly could. After Tiffany's paint crisis was fully resolved, you mean I corrected her sharply. Check your priorities, Mom. Better yet, check your phone. I'm sure Tiffany is having another 5-alarm meltdown about her crown molding right about now. As if on cue, Brenda's phone, clutched in her trembling hand, buzzed loudly. She glanced at it instinctively, her eyes widening almost comically. Go ahead, I said, a bitter smile touching my lips. Answer it. We both know you will. She stood up, her movements jerky, smoothing down her expensive silk skirt with trembling hands. This isn't over, Emily, she said, her voice tight with a mixture of anger and desperation. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Well, discuss this when you're feeling better. Actually, Mom, we won't. I pressed the call button for the nurse. Nurse, I think I'm ready for my rest now. As a hospital security guard, a precaution Marcus had wisely arranged, politely but firmly escorted them out of my room. I heard Brenda's voice crack, raw with disbelief. She can't do this to us. She's our daughter. No, I whispered to the empty room, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I was just the backup daughter, the one you never really wanted but always needed. And I quit. The monitor showed my heart rate slowly returning to its new, steady normal. Strong, resilient, like it knew, deep down, that this was just the beginning. My phone rang at 3:00 G in the morning, a few days later. Tiffany's name flashed across the screen. I almost ignored it, but a strange sense of morbid curiosity made me answer. How dare you? Her voice, shrill and crackling with undiluted rage, assaulted my ear. How dare you do this to Mom and Dad? Well, good morning to you too, Tiffany, I said, my voice deliberately calm. How's the crown molding crisis coming along? All sorted? Don't you dare be sarcastic with me, Emily. They're devastated. Mom hasn't stopped crying for 2 days, and Dad actually had to take a Xanax. I adjusted my hospital bed, pushing the button to sit up a little straighter, feeling a surprising surge of energy. Interesting, isn't it? How they can have such strong, immediate emotional reactions to consequences, but couldn't seem to muster an ounce of concern when I was literally, dying. Oh my God, you are not dying. Stop being so incredibly dramatic all the time, she shrieked. My heart stopped, Tiffany, I said, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous level. It actually factually stopped beating. But please, do tell me more about your earth-shattering paint emergency. She made a sound that was somewhere between a frustrated scream and a choked sob. You need to fix this, Emily. You need to call Marcus right now and undo everything you've done. Or what, Tiffany? I asked, genuinely curious. Or what will happen? Or, she sputtered, clearly not used to her demands being questioned. Or ill. He'll never speak to you again. I laughed. A real, genuine laugh, the first one that had escaped me in days. It felt good. Is that supposed to be a threat, Tiffany? Because honestly, right now, that sounds more like a promise. A really, really appealing one. The line went quiet for a moment, a tense, humming silence. When Tiffany spoke again, her voice had shifted, taking on that familiar, cloying, manipulative tremor, the one that usually preceded her getting exactly what she wanted. Emily, remember when we were kids, and you promised you'd always take care of me? A memory, vivid and unwelcome, flashed through my mind. I was 12. She was 6. She'd systematically destroyed my science fair project the night before it was due, pouring an entire bottle of glitter glue all over weeks of painstaking work. Brenda had blamed me for not sharing my supplies more generously. Actually, Tiffany, I do remember, I said, my voice hardening. I remember a lot of things, like how I had to sell Grandma Catherine's antique diamond ring, my only real inheritance from her, to bail you out of that gambling debt 3 years ago. Remember what you said to me then? Thanks, sis. You're the best. Right before you and Mom went on a celebratory shopping spree with the money I'd saved you. That was different. I needed that. You always need, Tiffany, and I'm always somehow expected to provide. Well, guess what? The provision store is closed. Permanently. Mom wants to meet, she said, abruptly changing tactics, her voice now small and wheedling. One last family meeting, to talk things through. For old time's sake, I considered this. A final showdown, perhaps. Fine, I said. Tomorrow, noon. The little coffee kiosk area in the hospital lobby. But on my terms, Tiffany. Noon? Okay, fine, noon, she agreed, a hint of triumph in her voice. And Tiffany, I added, my voice like chipped ice, I'm bringing Maya. You know, your annoying friend Maya. Why would you do that? She shrieked. Because, dear sister, I said, a grim smile touching my lips, I am so incredibly done with being outnumbered by you people. The next day, Brenda and Richard arrived first, looking drawn and haggard like they hadn't slept in days. They hovered awkwardly near a small table in the surprisingly quiet coffee kiosk area. Tiffany, predictably, swept in a full 10 minutes late, wearing enormous dark sunglasses indoors, clutching an oversized iced latte like it was a life raft, and radiating an aura of aggrieved martyrdom. Maya sat beside me, a silent, solid pillar of protective energy. She'd known my family dynamics for years, had witnessed their casual cruelty countless times, and had always been my steadfast, unshakable voice of reason. Sophia? Emily, Brenda began, her voice trembling slightly as she reached a tentative hand across the cheap Formica table. Let's just talk about this rationally, shall we? Rationally, Maya interjected, her voice cool and sharp as a shard of glass. You mean, like how you rationally ignored your daughter's emergency heart surgery for 3 days to deal with a paint crisis? This is a private family matter, Maya. Tiffany snapped, her head whipping around, sunglasses glinting. Stay out of it. Funny, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. I distinctly remember being family when you needed your astronomical credit card bills paid off, Tiffany, or when you needed a down payment for your condo, or when Richard raised his hands in a placating gesture, his face a mask of pained sincerity. Princess, please. We understand you're hurt. Deeply hurt. But this revenge, it's beneath you. You're better than this. Revenge? I leaned forward, my gaze locking onto his. This isn't revenge, Dad. This is called boundaries. This is called consequences. This is me, finally, after 38 years, saying no. You're being so selfish. Tiffany suddenly slammed her latte down on the table, coffee sloshing over the side. Do you have any idea what this is doing to me? My anxiety is through the roof. My followers can tell something's wrong. My engagement is down. Maya snorted, a small, incredulous sound. Your sister almost died, Tiffany, and you're seriously worried about your Instagram aesthetic? Stay out of this, you witch. Tiffany whirled on Maya, her face contorted with rage. This is all your fault. You've always been trying to turn her against us, poisoning her mind. No, I cut in, my voice low and firm, stopping Tiffany in her tracks. You did that all by yourselves, every single one of you. Brenda started crying then, her practiced, theatrical tears arriving right on schedule. We can fix this, sweetie, she sobbed, dabbing at her eyes with a pristine linen handkerchief. We can make this right. Just call Marcus. Tell him it was all a misunderstanding. Stop. My voice was still, but it cut through her performance like a scalpel. Just stop. The house in the Poconos is already in escrow. The accounts are closed, frozen, the locks have been changed. It's done. It's all done. Tiffany shot to her feet so fast her chair toppled backward with a loud clatter, drawing stares from the few other people in the lobby. You ungrateful. She grabbed her half-empty latte and, with a furious scream, hurled it directly at Maya. Maya, thank God, ducked just in time, the sugary, milky liquid splashing harmlessly against the wall behind her, the plastic cup bouncing onto the floor. The entire lobby went silent. 2 hospital security guards, alerted by the commotion, began approaching quickly. And that, I said quietly, my voice shaking slightly but firm as I gestured towards the scene. My seething sister, my weeping mother, my stunned father, the spreading puddle of coffee. That right there is exactly why all of this is happening. As security escorted a screaming, struggling Tiffany out of the hospital, her enraged shouts echoing down the polished hallway, I turned back to my parents. We're done here, I said, my voice hollow. Emily, please. Brenda tried one last time, her face a mess of tears and desperation. Don't do this to us. No, I said, feeling a profound sense of weary finality. I'm going to be discharged tomorrow, and when I leave this hospital, I'm leaving all of this dysfunction, this toxicity, behind me too. I stood up, Maya immediately, instinctively, rising beside me, her presence a silent comfort. Oh, and one more thing, I added, turning back at the last second. I've instructed Marcus to file a restraining order against Tiffany, effective immediately. Consider this her first and her very last warning. Walking back towards the elevators, Maya squeezed my hand, her grip firm and reassuring. You okay, Em? I nodded, a slow, tired movement, but for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I felt a sense of lightness, of release. You know what's funny, Maya? I said, a small, wry smile touching my lips. My heart, it's actually beating better. I'm stronger. Now that I've finally stopped letting them break it over and over again, behind us, I could still hear the faint, distant echoes of Tiffany's receding screams, mixing with Brenda's heartbroken sobs, the unmistakable, unavoidable sound of consequences, finally, irrevocably, catching up to them all. The Poconos Lake House sold in 3 days. 3 days, for well above the asking price. I signed the final closing papers from the comfort of my new, sunny apartment in a quiet neighborhood where I'd been recovering for the past week, slowly regaining my strength. Marcus sat across from me at my small dining table, a satisfied smile on his face as he slid a cashier's check across the polished wood. $4.2 million, Emily, he said, his voice tinged with admiration. Net, after all fees and commissions. So, what are you going to do with it? First thing, I said, my voice steady, I'm hiring an estate sale company to clear out that entire house. Everything goes. Furniture, antiques, artwork, including the piano. My hand stilled for a moment over the check. The baby grand piano. My childhood sanctuary, the one place I'd always found solace. Brenda had dramatically gifted it to Tiffany on her 16th birthday, despite knowing full well that I was the only one in the family who actually played, who loved it, who poured my heart into its keys. Tiffany had used it mostly as a convenient surface to dump her designer handbags. My phone buzzed with a news alert, a local gossip site. Local woman forcibly removed from luxury lakeshore boutique after altercation with staff. The thumbnail image showed a disheveled, furious Tiffany being escorted out by 2 large security guards, mascara streaking down her contorted face. Looks like your sister is making headlines again, Marcus noted, peering over at my screen with a raised eyebrow. She always did crave attention, I murmured, a humorless smile playing on my lips. I forwarded the article to Maya, who replied instantly with a string of laughing emojis and the message, Karma's working overtime this week, honey. And she is not messing around. The estate sale company, run by a no-nonsense, incredibly efficient woman named Olivia, arrived at the lake house the next day. I watched the proceedings via FaceTime, a strange, detached feeling washing over me as they meticulously cataloged everything, tagging pieces of my past with bright yellow price stickers. Olivia held up a familiar, ornate silver jewelry box, its velvet lining worn. What about this, Miss Harris? She asked, her voice businesslike. Inside, I knew, was an empty space where my grandmother Catherine's antique diamond ring had once rested, before I'd tearfully sold it to cover one of Tiffany's more spectacular financial disasters. Gambling debts this time. Sell it, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. Everything goes, no exceptions. Suddenly, a shrill, furious voice screeched from off camera. Sophia! Emily! You can't sell Mom's anniversary china. It's a family heirloom. Tiffany. She'd somehow gotten past the security Olivia had posted at the gate. Olivia, unflappable, simply turned the phone camera, showing Tiffany, wild-eyed and frantic, trying to grab items off a carefully arranged display table. Should I call the police, Miss Harris? Olivia asked calmly. Immediately, Olivia. Thank you. I watched a cold knot in my stomach as Tiffany was removed from the premises, again, this time screaming hysterically about family heirlooms and unforgivable betrayal and my inheritance. My phone immediately lit up with a barrage of texts from Brenda. How could you sell our precious memories, Emily? Your father is heartbroken. That piano was a special gift for Tiffany. We are still your family, you know. This is cruel. I calmly blocked their numbers one by one. Later that afternoon, Marcus called, and his voice was uncharacteristically tense. Emily, we have a situation. What now? I sighed, bracing myself. Tiffany, she just tried to file for a temporary conservatorship over you. She what? I exclaimed, disbelief warring with a weary sense of inevitability. She's claiming your cardiac event, and I quote, significantly affected your mental capacity and cognitive function. Says your recent erratic and vindictive behavior proves you're unfit to manage your own affairs. I laughed, a short, harsh, humorless sound. Let me guess, she's generously volunteering to step in and manage my money for me, out of the goodness of her heart? You got it in one, Marcus said grimly. Don't worry. It's utterly ridiculous, frivolous. No judge in their right mind would even consider... Fight it, Marcus, I interrupted, my voice suddenly hard as steel. Fight it hard. And make it expensive for her. And Marcus, countersue, for harassment, for malicious prosecution, for everything you can think of. The estate sale started on Saturday. I watched snippets of it via the security cameras Olivia had allowed me to access on my phone, a strange voyeuristic experience, as strangers picked through the carefully curated, perfectly polished image my family had always projected to the world. The baby grand piano, my piano, went first. To a local music school for their scholarship students. Perfect. My phone pinged with an email from an unfamiliar address. The subject line made my blood run cold. Your father's medical records. Marcus, what is this? I asked, my voice trembling slightly as I got him on speakerphone. Open it, Emily, he said, his voice quiet, somber. Inside was a single, chilling line of text, followed by a scanned medical document. Richard Harris also has a serious congenital heart condition. Brenda was informed years ago. Tiffany has been monitored for it since childhood. Guess Brenda only loved one daughter enough to warn her, and it was signed simply H, not Tiffany. This was different, more calculated. I felt my new, stronger heart skip a beat, then another. The room seemed to spin. Marcus, is this true? I had it independently verified this morning, Emily, Marcus said, his voice filled with a quiet rage I'd never heard from him before. Your father has the exact same rare, genetic heart condition you do. Tiffany has known about it and has been regularly screened for it since she was a child. They knew. They knew you could have inherited this, and they never, ever told you. Protected Tiffany, monitored Tiffany, but not me. Never me, the expendable one, the backup. Marcus, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, even though my hands were shaking uncontrollably. Remember when you said Tiffany's conservatorship claim was ridiculous? Yes. Utterly. Prove it. Release my full medical records to the court. Show them I'm not only competent, I'm thriving post-surgery. And then, Marcus, then you leak the fact that Brenda and Richard knew about this genetic condition. That they deliberately, knowingly, withheld life-saving medical information from me for my entire life. Emily, that's nuclear, he said, his voice low. They nearly let me die, Marcus, I whispered, the horror of it washing over me in a fresh, sickening wave. Nuclear feels entirely appropriate, don't you think? As we hung up, another notification popped up on my screen. A certified letter delivered electronically from Tiffany's new, even more aggressive lawyer. I opened the attachment, bracing myself for more threats, more demands. Instead, I found myself staring at a photograph, a faded, slightly blurry picture of me, around 12 years old, standing protectively beside a much smaller 6-year-old Tiffany. On the back, in Brenda's familiar, looping handwriting, were the words, "My precious girls, forever inseparable." and below that, scrawled in Tiffany's angry, childish block letters, was a fresh message. Remember who you're supposed to be, Emily. My protector, my sister. Don't make me destroy you. I forwarded the photo and the thinly veiled threat to Marcus without comment. Then I opened my laptop. It was time to tell my story. All of it. The decades of insidious manipulation, the relentless financial abuse, the devastating medical neglect. No names. Not yet. Just the unvarnished, brutal truth. As I typed, my fingers flying across the keyboard, I remembered something my grandma Catherine had told me years and years ago, shortly before she died. Sometimes, Emily girl, she'd said, her voice wise and kind, the bravest, kindest thing you can do is to stop protecting people from the natural consequences of their own actions. Each word I wrote felt like a brick, solid and real, in the wall I was building between my tough past and my uncertain but hopeful future. Let them come. Let them threaten. I wasn't their protector anymore. I wasn't their scapegoat. I was, finally, blessedly, my own. My blog post, titled The Silent Sister, A Story of Family Toxicity, Medical Neglect, and Survival, went live at midnight. By 6 a.m. the next morning, it had over 100,000 shares. I hadn't used any real names, just vague descriptors, but anyone who knew our family, even peripherally, would recognize the unmistakable, horrifying truth. Maya called first, her voice a mixture of excitement and concern. Em, have you seen Twitter? You're trending. Silent Sister no more. Golden Child Syndrome. It's everywhere. I refreshed my feed, stunned. Thousands of comments were pouring in, most from people sharing their own eerily similar stories of family dysfunction, of being the responsible one, the caretaker, the family ATM. And get this, Maya continued, a note of glee in her voice. Your mother's hoity-toity country club friends are apparently having an absolute field day with this. Rumor has it, Brenda had to leave her morning tennis match early because everyone was whispering and staring. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Ethan, Tiffany's long-suffering, on-again, off-again boyfriend. Emily, your sister is completely losing it, he said without any preamble, his voice tight with stress. She's been screaming, throwing things, breaking stuff for hours. I can't handle this anymore. I'm out. Not my problem anymore, Ethan, I said, my voice calm. She says you're lying about everything in that blog post, that you're just jealous of her, that you always have been. I let out a short, weary laugh. Ethan, ask her about Richard's heart condition. No, ask her why she and Brenda and Richard knew for years that I could have the same genetic time bomb ticking inside me that almost killed me last month, and why they never ever said a word to me. Silence on the other end of the line. Then a choked sound. They knew about your dad? And you? Since we were kids, Ethan? Tiffany got tested and monitored regularly. I didn't even know the condition ran in the family until a few days ago. Jesus Christ, he exhaled heavily, the sound ragged. I am done, Emily. I'm really done this time. Tell Marcus I'll testify about her behavior, about everything if he needs me to. Anything to get away from this crazy family. By noon, the story had been picked up by local news outlets. Prominent Chicago Family's Dirty Laundry aired a disturbing tale of alleged medical neglect and financial abuse. They didn't use our names, not yet, but they didn't need to. The descriptions were specific enough. Richard's phone call came next, his voice trembling with a mixture of rage and fear. Princess, Emily, please. You have to stop this. They're asking me to step down from the country club board. My reputation. Tragic, Dad, I said, my voice like ice. Almost as tragic as deliberately not telling your daughter she had a potentially fatal genetic heart condition that could kill her at any moment. We were just trying to protect you from worry, sweetie, he stammered, the lie sounding pathetic even to my own ears. No, Dad, I corrected him sharply. You were trying to protect Tiffany from any responsibility, any competition, any diversion of resources. As usual. And by the way, your so-called friends aren't seeing who I really are. They're finally seeing who you all really are. Marcus called with a flurry of updates. Good news and more news, he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Tiffany's ridiculous conservatorship attempt was thrown out by the judge. His exact words were, and I quote, "This is the most frivolous and malicious petition I have seen in my 15 years on the bench." He actually laughed her lawyer out of the courtroom. A small smile touched my lips. And the more news? She had her lawyer send a cease and desist letter, claiming your blog post has caused her irreparable emotional trauma and public humiliation. Perfect, I said. Counter with the full, unredacted medical records and the evidence of their knowledge of my father's condition. Already did, Marcus said smugly. Her lawyer withdrew the cease and desist letter in under an hour, said he was reconsidering his representation. I was reviewing some complex transfer paperwork for my remaining assets, moving everything into new, secure trusts, when my email pinged. A message from Ethan. Thought you should see this. She doesn't know I recorded it. The attached video file showed Tiffany, in her perfectly sage-green condo, absolutely raging at Brenda and Richard. "Fix this!" she was screaming, her face purple with fury. "Make her stop! I can't take people looking at me like this, whispering about me. Do something!" Brenda's voice tearful and placating. "Darling, we're trying, but she won't listen." "Try harder," Tiffany shrieked. "I'm the one who matters here. I'm your real daughter. You owe me." The video cut off abruptly. I forwarded it to Marcus with one word: leverage. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. A crystal clear photo of my Grandma Catherine's antique diamond ring, the one I'd sold years ago to bail out Tiffany. Missing something? The text read, "Who is this?" I typed back, my heart pounding. "Someone who bought it from a pawn shop a while back. Want it back? Meet me. Alone." I blocked the number immediately and called Marcus, my voice shaking. "They're getting desperate, Marcus. Really desperate. Someone just tried to blackmail me with Grandma's ring." "Good," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "Let them, because I just filed the comprehensive harassment suit, including for emotional distress and malicious prosecution." "And Emily? The ring thing? That was amateur hour. I bought your grandmother's ring back from that pawn shop months ago, as soon as I found out you'd sold it. It's been in my office safe ever since." Tears pricked my eyes, blurring my vision. You did?" "Of course I did," he said softly. "I knew you'd want it back someday when the time was right." That evening, my blog post, The Silent Sister, somehow hit the national news cycle. My inbox exploded with interview requests. Producers from Dr. Phil's show called, twice. Then came Brenda's voicemail. She was crying, screaming, apologizing, begging, all in the same breathless, incoherent ramble. "Please, sweetie, Emily, please, we can fix this. Just tell everyone you were confused, that you were overwrought from the surgery. Say you made it all up. We're your fair family. We love you." I played it for Maya later over a much-needed glass of wine. "Wow," Maya said, her eyebrows raised. For a second there, she almost sounded sincere. "She's not," I said, shaking my head. "Listen carefully. She's not saying she's sorry for what they did. She's sorry they got caught." My phone buzzed again. Another news alert. Local socialite has public meltdown at prestigious charity gala, throws champagne at photographer. The accompanying photo showed Tiffany, looking wild and unhinged, being forcibly escorted out of a ballroom by security, her designer gown askew. "Your sister's really committing to this downward spiral, isn't she?" Maya observed, sipping her wine. "She's never faced real consequences before in her entire life," I said, a strange sadness welling up despite everything. "She literally doesn't know how to handle it." I opened my laptop and began typing again. Not another blog post this time. This was an email to my realtor. Subject line, "Looking for properties in Southern California, preferably with an ocean view. Running away?" Maya asked, reading over my shoulder with a smile. "No," I replied, thinking of Grandma Catherine's ring, safe and sound, waiting for me in Marcus' office. "No, I don't think so." I took a deep breath. I think for the first time in my life, I'm running towards something. Something better. As if on cue, Brenda's number flashed on my phone screen. For the very first time in my life, I didn't feel that familiar, conditioned lurch of obligation, that automatic urge to answer, to placate, to fix. I simply pressed ignore. Some bridges, I was finally learning, aren't meant to be repaired. Some fires just need to burn themselves out until there's nothing left but the cold, hard, undeniable truth in the ashes. The old family home, a sprawling colonial in a wealthy Chicago suburb, looked smaller somehow, less imposing than I remembered. I stood in the wide, circular driveway, car keys clutched in my hand, staring at the familiar facade that had housed so many years of carefully constructed lies and painful secrets. "Want me to go in first, Em?" Maya asked softly from beside me, her presence a quiet comfort. "No," I said, taking a deep breath. "I need to do this myself." I'd come to collect the last few of my personal belongings, childhood treasures, and important documents before my move to California next week. Marcus, bless his thorough, cautious heart, had arranged for a discreet police presence, just in case. The marked cruiser parked unobtrusively down the quiet tree-lined street still felt surreal, a stark symbol of just how fractured things had become. The heavy oak front door opened before I could even insert my key. Brenda stood there, looking oddly diminished, her usually impeccable makeup smudged, her eyes redrimmed and puffy. You brought security?" Her voice cracked, a mixture of disbelief and accusation. "I brought witnesses, Mom," I corrected her gently, nodding towards Maya and the uniformed police officer who was now walking slowly, calmly up the long driveway. Richard appeared behind her in the doorway, his face etched with a weary resignation. "Princess, Emily, this is entirely unnecessary. After Tiffany's latest series of public meltdowns and thinly veiled threadstats, I'd say it's very, very necessary." They stepped aside, a silent, reluctant parting, allowing us to enter the grand foyer. The house smelled faintly of desperation and Chanel No. 5, Brenda's signature stress cleaning scent. "I'm just here for my things," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space as I headed towards the sweeping central staircase. "Just a few boxes from my old room, childhood photos, some personal documents. It'll be quick." "Wait," Brenda called out, her voice strained. There's something you need to know first, something important." I turned halfway up the stairs, watching her nervously twist the large diamond wedding ring on her finger, her lifelong tell for incoming manipulation or a particularly difficult confession. "You should probably sit down for this, dear," she said, gesturing vaguely towards the formal living room. "I'll stand," I replied, my hand tightening on the polished banister. She exchanged a quick, anxious look with Richard, who gave a barely perceptible nod. It's about your adoption, Emily." The word hung in the air like a thick, acrid smoke. Adoption. Maya instinctively grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in slightly, steadying me as the ground seemed to tilt beneath my feet. My what?" "You're not." Brenda's voice wavered, tears welling in her eyes again. "Technically, darling, you're your Aunt Clara's daughter. My sister, Clara. When she died in that terrible car accident, we took you in. You were only 2 years old." Her voice dropped to a whisper. We never told you because we wanted you to feel like you were truly part of our family. Like our real daughter." The room tilted, spun. Aunt Clara, Mom's younger sister. The vibrant, laughing aunt I barely remembered, who had died so tragically, so young. My mother, my actual mother. Richard stepped forward, his hands outstretched in a gesture of appeal. "We loved you like our own, Emily. We always did. Stop." My voice was ice, cutting through their carefully rehearsed narrative. "Just stop. You loved me like your own? You let me believe I was your biological child my entire life, while simultaneously withholding potentially life-saving medical information that, it turns out, wasn't even genetically relevant to me through your bloodline, but through my actual mother's? You prioritized Tiffany, your biological daughter, at every turn, while I paid her bills, cleaned up her never-ending messes, and nearly died alone in a hospital because you were too busy with her latest manufactured drama. We didn't want you to feel different." Brenda protested weakly, tears streaming down her face now. "Different?" I let out a harsh, incredulous laugh that sounded brittle, even to my own ears. "You mean, like how you treated me differently, demonstrably, my entire life? Like I was always second best? Always the afterthought? Always the one expected to sacrifice everything for your real daughter?" Heavy, angry footsteps pounding on the stairs announced Tiffany's dramatic arrival from the second floor. "Oh, good," she sneered, her face alight with malicious triumph as she descended into the foyer. "She finally knows she's not really my sister after all." "About time. I'm not." I turned to face her, a strange, sudden calmness washing over me, a profound, unexpected sense of clarity. "Well then, Tiffany, I guess that means I'm not really responsible for you anymore, am I?" "Not in any way, shape, or form. All those years of crushing guilt, of unspoken obligation, of feeling like I owed them something I could never quite repay, they never truly belonged to me, did they? They were a burden unfairly placed upon me." "You ungrateful." Tiffany started to shriek, her face contorting with rage. But Brenda, surprisingly, cut her off. "We gave you everything, Emily?" she cried, her voice thick with accusation. "A home, a wonderful education, so many opportunities. No, I interrupted, my voice quiet but firm, resonating with a newfound conviction. I earned those things, Mom, every single one of them. While you were busy coddling your real daughter, I was working, achieving, providing. I walked slowly back up the stairs, pushing past a seething Tiffany without a word. In my old childhood room, crammed now with dusty relics of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else, I found the small box of belongings I'd come for. Old photos, school reports, faded documents, bittersweet memories. At the very bottom, carefully wrapped in yellowed tissue paper, was a small, tarnished silver frame. Inside was the last photograph ever taken of Aunt Clara, my real mother, her face young and vibrant, smiling radiantly as she held a chubby, gurgling baby. Me. Downstairs, the carefully constructed facade of civility had completely shattered. Chaos had erupted. Tiffany was screaming about inheritance rights and her share. Brenda was sobbing hysterically about family loyalty and betrayal. Richard was attempting futilely to talk over everyone, his voice pleading for reasonable discussions and calm. I descended the stairs slowly, clutching my small box of authentic memories, the police officer instinctively moving a little closer as I reached the bottom step. "That's my baby photo album. You can't take that!" Tiffany shrieked, lunging for the box in my hands. The officer quickly, calmly stepped between us, a solid, impassive barrier. "Actually, Tiffany," I said, my voice surprisingly serene, "these are Aunt Clara's photos, my mother's photos, my memories. I'm taking what is rightfully mine, and I'm leaving behind everything that never truly was. You can't just walk away from this family." Brenda grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. I gently, firmly shook her off. "I'm not walking away from my family, Mom. I'm walking away from people who kept me around as a convenient, unpaid, unacknowledged backup plan. There's a very big difference." "Well, Sue," Tiffany screamed, her voice hoarse with rage. "Well, take everything you have. Go ahead," I said, reaching the front door. "Try it." I turned back to face them one last time, my voice clear and steady. "But just remember, I have documented proof of financial fraud, clear evidence of medical neglect, and now irrefutable proof that you knowingly, deliberately withheld my adoption status from me for decades, all while using my sense of familial obligation against me. Want to see how all of that plays out in court in the full glare of public opinion?" A stunned, suffocating silence fell over the grand foyer. I turned to them, a small, sad smile touching my lips. "You know what's truly ironic in all of this? You kept this massive secret for my entire life, probably thinking that if I ever found out, it would devastate me, make me feel even less like family. But knowing the truth, it actually, finally, sets me free." I took a deep breath. "I'm not your backup daughter. I'm not your human ATM. I'm not your emotional scapegoat anymore. I'm Clara's daughter, and I am completely, utterly done carrying your burdens." Maya quietly opened the front door and bright, warm sunlight streamed into the dim, oppressive hallway. Behind me, I heard Brenda collapse into a fresh torrent of tears, Richard's feeble, ineffectual attempts at comfort, Tiffany's incoherent, sputtering rage. But ahead of me, through that open door, there was nothing but open road and boundless, exhilarating possibility. "Ready, Em?" Maya asked, her eyes shining with a mixture of pride and relief. I clutched my small box of real memories, my true history, to my chest, feeling lighter, freer than I ever had in my entire life. Ready. We walked out into the brilliant sunlight, leaving the long, dark shadows of lies and manipulation behind us in that house of curated sorrow. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with yet another aggressive, threatening email from Tiffany's latest lawyer. Let them come. I had the truth on my side now. And the truth, I was finally powerfully learning, was the strongest, most unshakable weapon of all. The warm California sun streamed through the large window of my home office, its golden light falling across my laptop keyboard as I finished typing the final sentences of my last blog post. My heart, now steady, strong, and reliable, kept a perfect, peaceful rhythm with the gentle clicks of the keys. And that, I wrote, is how I learned that true family isn't about blood or obligation or shared DNA. It's about choice, conscious, deliberate choice. Every single day, we choose who we let into our hearts, who we allow to share our lives, who we call family. My phone lit up with Marcus's name. "It's official, Emily," he announced, his voice filled with a triumphant satisfaction. "All the lawsuits, Tiffany's conservatorship attempt, her defamation claims, the challenges to the property sales, They've all been formally dismissed by the judge, with prejudice. The judge actually called them, and I quote, frivolous, vexatious, and transparent attempts at continued financial manipulation and emotional harassment. Wow, I breathed, a wave of relief washing over me. And how's Tiffany taking the news? Not well, by all accounts, Marcus said, a dry chuckle in his voice. Have you seen the latest tabloid headlines? I quickly pulled up a gossip website on my browser. The lead story, complete with grainy paparazzi photos, disgraced socialite's epic public meltdown goes viral. My sister ruined my life, screams heiress. The accompanying video showed Tiffany looking wild and disheveled, throwing a drink at a photographer outside a trendy Manhattan restaurant, then collapsing into a sobbing heap on the sidewalk. She's trending again, I said, a touch of sadness in my voice despite everything. Just not quite the kind of fame she always dreamed of, I imagine. Speaking of trending, Marcus continued, his tone shifting. Your blog, The Silent Sister, now has over 1 million subscribers. And that publishing deal we discussed, it looks incredibly solid. They're talking a significant advance, Emily. I glanced at the draft book contract lying on my desk. My story, our story, the story of so many silent sisters and forgotten children was going to become a book. Not for revenge, not anymore, but for others, for those still trapped in similar insidious cycles of family toxicity, to show them there was a way out, a path towards healing. A notification popped up on my screen, an email from Brenda. The subject line simply read, "Your father's birthday." Inside, there was no text, just a single, faded photograph from a family vacation years ago, one of the last seemingly happy ones before everything started to publicly implode. Us, on a beach somewhere, smiling awkwardly for the camera. Below it, Brenda had typed a single, poignant sentence. "We miss you, Emily. Can't we just go back to how things were?" I stared at the photo for a long moment, a faint echo of old sadness stirring within me. Then I took a deep breath and clicked delete. My doorbell rang. Maya stood on my sunny porch, holding 2 large coffees and a small, beautifully wrapped package. "Special delivery from Marcus," she announced, her eyes sparkling as she handed me the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of rich, dark velvet, was my Grandma Catherine's antique diamond ring. The one I'd tearfully sold for Tiffany all those years ago. The one Marcus, in his quiet, steadfast way, had rescued and kept safe for me. But now it was different. It sat on a delicate new platinum chain, transformed from a ring, a symbol of past burdens, into an elegant necklace. "Marcus said he thought you might want to wear it differently now," Maya explained softly. "New meanings, new memories for new beginnings." I fastened it around my neck, the cool metal surprisingly comforting against my skin. Just as my laptop chimed with a new email, a donation confirmation. I'd just funded a full year of comprehensive cardiac screening for low-income families through my local community hospital. The program was named the Clara Harris Heart Health Initiative, after Aunt Clara, my real mother, the woman whose strength and love I was only now beginning to truly understand. "Your online support group starts in 5 minutes, Maya reminded me, glancing at her watch. "Ready to inspire some more folks?" I logged into the video call, and dozens of faces, eager and hopeful, appeared on my screen. All people who had found their own courage, their own voices, through sharing their stories, through knowing they weren't alone. We weren't just healing ourselves anymore. We were building something new, a community of survivors, a testament to resilience. "Welcome, everyone," I began, my voice clear and confident. "Today, we're going to be talking about setting healthy boundaries without the guilt." Halfway through the session, my phone buzzed quietly. A text from Ethan. "Thought you should know. Tiffany is apparently trying to sell some sob story to the tabloids about your shocking adoption discovery. But don't worry, I already sent them that video of her admitting to financial fraud and screaming that she was the real daughter. They're less interested in her version now." I smiled, a genuine, warm smile. Karma indeed really was working overtime, and apparently she had a wicked sense of humor. Another email arrived, this one from Richard. The subject line made me pause. "I'm sorry." For what it's worth, Emily, he'd written, the words simple, unadorned, "I was wrong. We were all so terribly wrong." Not just about how we treated you, but about what family truly means. You are stronger and better than any of us ever were, or ever will be. For the first time, his words, whether sincere or not, held no real power over me. I didn't need his approval anymore. I didn't even need his apology, though a small part of me acknowledged the courage it must have taken him to send it. I was no longer that lost little girl, desperately craving her family's love and acceptance. The support group session ended with our usual affirmation, voices from all over the country, all over the world, joining together. We choose ourselves today. We are worthy of love and respect, simply because we exist. Maya pointed to my laptop screen, where comments were still scrolling under my latest blog post. A new message stood out, raw and heartfelt. I just left my toxic family today. Your story, your strength, gave me the courage I didn't know I had. Thank you, Emily, for showing me that walking away isn't giving up. It's finally, truly, growing up. I touched the delicate necklace, Grandma Catherine's ring, now resting over my heart instead of weighing down my hand. Ready for that early dinner? I asked Maya. That new Thai place downtown has outdoor seating, and the weather's perfect. Always, Maya grinned. Oh, and I invited someone from your cardiac support group to join us. You know, that writer who also survived some pretty intense family drama? Sarah? She seemed really cool, thought you two would hit it off. Outside, the California sunset was painting the sky in breathtaking hues of orange, pink, and gold. Colors no paint swatch, no matter how carefully chosen, could ever hope to capture. My phone buzzed one last time. Tiffany, predictably, posting another long, rambling, self-pitying rant about family betrayal and stolen inheritances on some obscure social media platform. I calmly turned off all notifications from her, a small, decisive click. Then I smiled at Maya, a real smile, full of peace and a quiet, unshakable joy. You know what? I said, taking a deep, cleansing breath of the sweet evening air. I think I'm finally done carrying their stories. It's time to just live my own. We walked towards the restaurant, the gentle weight of my grandmother's ring, my mother's legacy, a comforting presence against my skin, catching the last golden rays of the setting sun. Behind us, a steady stream of comments continued to flow on my blog post, a river of shared experiences, of newfound hope. You helped me find my voice. I'm choosing myself today. Thank you for showing us the way out. Revenge, I realized, had been the catalyst, the desperate act that had brought me to this place. But it wasn't what kept me standing here now, strong and whole. That came from something deeper, something more profound. The quiet, resilient power of choosing myself, of building a life where love didn't demand sacrifice but offered solace, where family wasn't a cage, but a choice. My heartbeat, steady and true, no longer racing to please others or breaking under the crushing weight of unwanted, unearned obligations. This was freedom. This, finally, was peace. And it tasted sweeter, so much sweeter, than any revenge ever could. Thanks for listening to my story. It's been a journey, that's for sure. If any part of this resonated with you, if you faced your own battles with toxic relationships or fought for your own truth, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories matter, and sharing them can be a powerful step in healing, not just for you, but for others too. And hey, if you want to hear more stories of resilience and redemption, please consider subscribing to the channel. Every bit of support, even a super thanks, helps us continue to share these important narratives and build a community where everyone feels seen and heard. It's all part of the healing journey for all of us.